Well, I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speakers, Sarah Goldammer and Tara Schwab, who will be sharing their expertise and passion around universal design for learning as an approach for reaching all learners. As we were planning for this conference and thinking about the general session, we thought that this would be an ideal topic because it has applications for everyone, no matter who your learners are and what your role is in adult education. Sarah and Tara are joining us from the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center, which is part of the Illinois Community College Board Professional Development Network for Adult Education. Similar to the way we have Atlas, they serve Illinois educators. They are both long-term educators, and they are both certified trainers of Universal Design for Learning through CAST, which is the organization that developed the UDL guidelines and framework. I know that I always walk away from their sessions having learned a lot and really feeling inspired to take action. So I'm very grateful and excited that they were able to join us today to help us think about how we can use universal design to elevate learning for our Minnesota adult learners. So with that, I would like to welcome Sarah and Tara. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Astrid, and we are really excited to join as well. So hello to all of the Minnesotans, and thank you to all of Astrid and all of her colleagues that made this so easy for us to come and talk about UDL today. And I'm just going to say, when I got up this morning, I was so excited because I thought, wow, I get to go and talk to a whole bunch of people about the value of universal design for learning. And why am I excited about that? Because Tara and I, we're going to share some resources, some ideas, but we're also going to share real life changes that happen when we meet people where they are. So welcome to Elevate Your Instruction for All using the UDL lens. Astrid, thank you for introducing us. I'm here with my partner and friend, Tara Schwab.
Hello.
So wave to him, Tara. All right. Let's get started finding out a little bit about you. And I know there's over 200 people here and it's virtual, but we would like to make this as interactive as possible. So that is our heart today in this next hour. So if you can tell us, are you, and Tara told me not to sing the first one, like it, love it, can't get enough of it, but how do you feel about UDL? I'm going to listen to her and not sing that. Do you know what UDL is and think that you use it a little bit? You've heard of it, but I don't really know. Or my personal favorite, and I see there's already people choosing this one. What's the topic today? I didn't know. I just signed up because I know that through Atlas, I get good professional development. So I'm going to come and join. So, all right. Let's see how many. We really need full participation. So we're going to ask you to let us know that you're here. Tell us who you, what you know about UDL. Tara and I are longtime educators, and we also were students who liked to get an A back in the day whenever we were teacher's pet. So I see right now we've had 165 people that have responded.
Great start.
Yeah, that's a great start, but I think we need to get up in the A range. So we need a few more of you to fill out for us. What do you know about UDL? Okay, the numbers are coming up.
We're climbing. Come on.
We're climbing.
Yes,
Awesome.
like
Thank you.
Participation in the morning. We'll get going. Thank you. Thank you.
And a few of you are putting it in the chat as well. And I love that because you are now representing multiple means of action and expression, which we're going to talk about, that there's multiple ways to give your answer. So thank you for those of you who put that in the chat as well. Okay, I think we're going to move on now. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. And since I've already, I believe, had one snafu in sharing, can somebody just tell me that you can see what the results are?
We can see. Thank you. And
awesome. Great.
Okay. And you see them too, Sarah?
I do. So
okay,
we've got some like it, love it, can't get enough of it. That's about 10% of you. Awesome. That's where Tara and I are. You know it and you think you use it, 43% of you. And that's one of the things that Tara and I are going to focus on is like helping you think about what you're already doing and then build upon that. Because I think for all of you, you're going to find out like, oh yeah, I do that. Oh, that's something I do. So we really are hoping that that is how you feel today. Heard about it, but you don't know it. That's about a third of you. And then what is the topic of today? I love that 14% that that shows that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing that and let's move on. So let's tell you a little bit about the agenda and also multiple ways that you can get the note page that we have for you today. So having an agenda, letting people know, and that's true of a meeting, that's true of a training, that's true of a class, letting people know what to expect is part of Universal Design for Learning. Most of us like to know what's coming up. We like, and we can be better engaged if we know about it. So we are going to go through a little overview of UDL. And UDL, Universal Design for Learning, is the lens to view teaching and learning. And Tara and I are going to make the case for you in this next hour that it's also a lens to view life. We have found so many practical applications of ways that we can use the principles of UDL to have better engagement, with our coworkers, with neighbors even. Tara might even tell us with her kids. So UDL in action. What are you already doing? And I already mentioned that a little bit, that we're going to talk about that and that is part of what we really want to engage your brain now to think about, okay, what am I already doing? And make note of that. UDL is a resource for all, and that's the thing. UDL works for everyone. If you're teaching English language learners, if you're teaching people that have a disability, if you're teaching people who are incarcerated, if you're teaching, you fill in the blank, anybody, it can be used for everybody because it helps us to think about designing for variability, and we can predict variability, which Tara is going to tell you about in a little bit. We're going to go through some replicable practices, some application pieces, and we're going to give you resources. We know that what we teachers want more than anything is give me something I can use. So we're going to do that as well. And then we're also going to tell you briefly about the CTAE UDL SIG Student Voice Project. And right there was a barrier because I used a whole bunch of acronyms. So I'm going to tell you what that means. The Career Technical Adult Education. And UDL now is Universal Design for Learning, and a SIG is a special interest group. So we're going to ask you to consider joining us in this work. And we also have an interesting research project that we'd love for you to be a part of if you're interested. Also, to help you and support you today, we have a note page. And you already have a link in there where there's some resources. Also, if you would prefer, that QR code will take you to a Google Doc that will force a copy. And I believe we're also putting that in the chat as well. So you have multiple ways that you can, thank you, Gail, really appreciate you. Multiple ways that you can access that. I'm going to tell you real quickly that note page was made with the thought of making it completely accessible. Sometimes slides, we love a lot of visuals, but sometimes that can get in the way of like a screen reader or something like that. So the note pages are for you to reflect, make your own notes about what you want to know more about. However, most of the content, or pretty much all the content that's on the slides, will be in the note pages. So you don't have to write any of that down. So hopefully that is freeing for you. Then one more thing that I want to talk about before we make the turn into our content is I want you to think about what you want to get out of this hour of time. You've got this full day of training, but you're starting off with this hour. So what will make this time, what will make it worth the commitment that you have made to an hour? And I'd love for you to put that in the chat if you're willing. And if I know there's over 200 people, so we can't read every single one of them, but if some of you would put in the chat what you're hoping to get out of this, that helps Tara and me to know. And if you don't put it in the chat, or if you do, either one, please call it to mind. That's another aspect of Universal Design for Learning, helping you think about what do I want? Because if I know my why, I am much more likely to get my why out of this hour of time. So, Tara, are we having some things in the chat?
We are. Useful tips that are easy to apply, concrete examples of UDL in action, the definition of UDL and how to use it, to learn what the UDL thing is, a lens that helps me analyze and improve my instruction. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for all of these great goals and telling us your why. That really helps you to engage with this next hour and for us to do what we can to, go back to and help meet these goals. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for everybody who put things in the chat, and you can keep writing those down for yourself. But let's go ahead and get started because I saw somebody put they want something to use on Monday. Well, that is our goal for you as well. We're going to use that and hopefully that will be achieved. So as you're thinking about UDL, and Tara's going to give you a definition and take you through the guidelines and that type of thing, but think about it broadly as we're going to teach skills in a way that acknowledges that we see our learners. And why is there a Marvel Studios graph on the screen? Tara and I do a lot of training in Illinois with our teachers about UDL, and this is thanks to Kelly Meyer, who's from Lewis and Clark Community College. So in case anybody knows where Godfrey, Illinois is, there you go, extra credit for today. And if not, that could be a geography question. And Kelly shared with us that, and I'm going to read part of it, we do some of the greatest icebreakers with our students where we learn tons about their interests, but do we ever do anything with that or we just file it away? So Kelly's advice was, and she tried this out in the classroom and found it to be very effective, is one of her students told her that they loved Marvel movies. And so when she was teaching graphs, instead of doing, this is how many apples Sally sold at the market, that was actually her description, she used Marvel. And so her advice to you, we're going to pass it on, is do a search of an interest that you know that your students have or a student has, and a skill that you're trying to teach. And then with some luck, you might just strike a gold. And if not, you might have to do a little bit more, ask AI. But we live in a world with so many tools. Let's think about what makes our students excited, what engages them. And with that beginning, I'm going to turn it over to Tara to tell you a little bit more about Universal Design for Learning.
Thank you. And on your screen here is a favorite quote and a favorite visual of ours that we feel exemplify what UDL is and can be for all of us. So the first quote, the barriers in the environment, not the learner. Just like when we're traveling, some barriers are predictable. Traffic, roadblocks, things like that. And this idea can extend to our learners. When we're teaching new vocabulary that's very contextual, some of our material might not be culturally relevant. We can really work to consider barriers and plan for options that create a more positive environment for our learners. So here's some key questions you could ask. What are the barriers? What could be the barriers? What's one tool or strategy to reduce this barrier? How can I make it available to all students? So often we have students both with undiagnosed and disclosed disabilities, and this is variability that we can predict. So how can we plan for this? UDL allows us to plan to break down barriers for all our learners. What options can we add? We'll be discussing these types of options all throughout this session, and it'll allow us to provide access for these students through Universal Design for Learning. So we can reflect on our teaching, and that helps us to identify barriers. So what did I have to explain further in that lesson the first time I taught it or brought it up? Could I have provided more options? So for example, if I was introducing that new difficult contextualized vocabulary, did I have print available? Did I have images? Did I have an audio option for pronunciation that students could then take and use on their own time? Did I provide some options for gamification, for engagement, having flashcards available, both online and in print, all while teaching new vocabulary? So I didn't do one of those each day, but I do my best to provide those options as much as I can each time. So that's really the heart of UDL there, and just kind of starting with some concrete examples, like people were saying in the chat. Also, asking for feedback. We want to ask our learners both before and after. Sarah kind of gave an example from the get-go, kind of from the introduction. Hey, I already got some feedback about their interest. Maybe when I introduce a new topic, I could connect that. But also after we're teaching, we'll talk a little bit more about some ways to do that. So UDL is all the things that I was just talking about, and it's so much more. So we're really going to spend some time introducing UDL and sort of sitting in the meaning and purpose for a little bit, and then we'll dig in to get more of a taste. We could dig in for days, and we'll do our best, but we really hope you catch the UDL fever with us, and then we provide some resources so that you can continue your journey through UDL. And we really encourage you to be proactive. You're already doing that by being here. And UDL provides us with a new lens. That's kind of really speaking to that second image that's on our screen. It's a new lens for us to organize and expand on what we're already doing. There's a lot of wonderful best practices going on in this Zoom room and in your classrooms outside of it with these wonderful practitioners that we're here with today. And let's take a look at what else we can do to expand our practices. So now we're going to play you another introductory video here, or an introductory video here. And this is part of our Universal Design for Learning video series. We have provided the link in your notes, and I believe it's going to go in the chat as well, to our whole UDL video series. So again, we do invite you and encourage you to take a look at all these videos and use them. Use them with each other at home, watching them with on your own time. And again, this is modeling UDL in practice. You can use this at home, show our students how to speed up and slow down the playing in YouTube, how to access the transcript, make sure all those things are available, and that they have the option to view at home at their own speed, their own pace, and at their own time. So now we're going to take a look as a group to one of these videos.
Universal Design for Learning, UDL, is an approach to improve and optimize teaching and learning for all learners by setting clear, rigorous goals, anticipating barriers, and proactively designing to minimize those barriers. You may know of Universal Design in architecture. It's an approach to design that works to ensure products and buildings can be used by anyone, regardless of their level of ability. When a building is designed for flexibility, it can serve everyone, with or without disabilities. Let's consider this universal design approach in learning. What difference would it make if educators looked for barriers in the design or in the curriculum rather than in the learners? What if we built flexibility into teaching and learning? Why should we look at our design and infuse UDL? Research shows the ways people learn are as unique as fingerprints. Variability in learning is the norm, so curriculum needs to be designed from the start to meet the diverse needs of each learner. When we design for the average learner, we miss reaching nearly everyone because no one is average, at least not in every area. When we design for variability, we are minimizing barriers and increasing access for all our learners. Variability is contextual. That means a learner may need the design to be different depending on topics, the environment, or the time or day of instruction. Every learner brings their own background, strengths, needs, and interests. To meet each learner effectively, the learner needs should be addressed through choices and access to provide authentic learning experiences. Designing for individuals in the margins helps everyone by providing support and challenges for all. We know from our friends at CAST, the Center for Applied Special Technology, pioneers in UDL, that universal design for learning equals learning for all. Remember, small changes make big impacts. What's one small change you can make?
Thank you. And I love that last quote. What's one small change you can make? That's what it's about, right? There's so much we can do, but really thinking about where we can start. So this next slide here, it was requested that we have a definition of UDL, and here we are. We're going to directly define it right here. This is the legal definition of UDL, and it might be interesting for all of us as adult educators to know that this is the same definition used under Perkins legislation for our CTE partners. So this is the overall legal definition of UDL. So notice the bolding here that brings out important parts of the definition. This is universal design for learning in itself, using bold or colors to help elevate key points of text and visuals. So you have the whole definition here, but we're going to pull out a few of these key features here. The idea of flexibility. We have to be able to maneuver to meet the needs of all of our students and provide options for all at different times. Also, reducing barriers. We've already talked a lot about that. but it really does help to reduce barriers and to provide options for students at different times. And really important, something that comes up a lot when talking about UDL, especially the definition and the overall concept of UDL, is like, well, wait a minute. We don't want to, we have standards to meet, and we don't want to reduce the rigor or the expectations of students. That is not what UDL is. It's maintaining the rigor, but truly providing options to help students along their learning journey to have options that work for them in different contexts. So showing what they know in different ways, things like that. And we'll really dig into some of the examples, but just to make clear that this is maintaining high achievement expectations and keeping that rigor for all students. The UDL guidelines themselves are a living dynamic tool that's based in brain research and continually developed. And these guidelines that are showing on our screen now they're for use in implementing UDL for learning. So we're really going to take a look at this. We also provided the UDL guideline link in your notes, and I believe it's going in the chat as well. And so we do encourage you, thank you, Gail. We do encourage you to kind of sit in them. They're clickable, so you can go in each of the areas to get ideas of how they can be applied and used in your classroom. And again, I think I already said real quick, but just to make clear, these are very newly revised this year. And so the UDL guidelines have always addressed the why of learning in the green column. That's all about the why of learning. And that's with providing options for engagement. Then as we move across, the what of learning in the purple column with a framework to provide options for how we present. That's what we're talking about, how we represent material to our learners. That's what that purple column is all about. And then the how of learning in the blue with providing options for how learners can show what they know. The newest update weaves throughout the framework the who of learning with consideration for different perspectives and different people, all to promote belonging in our learning spaces. I love this quote from Cass. The UDL guidelines offer a structure for proactively uncovering and addressing barriers and for intentionally designing learning environments and experiences that fully honor and value every learner. So also note that the framework comes in the form of the grid. So we already talked about how they go across in the columns, but there are also rows that build as they move down. So that first row, the access row, includes guidelines that suggest ways to increase access to the learning goal. We really talked about goals today. So designing options for welcoming interests and identities, perception, interacting with each other, and the information. Then as we move down, there's a support row. So that includes guidelines that suggest ways to support the learning process by designing options for effort and persistence, language and symbols, and expression and communication. And then finally, the executive function row. So that includes ways to support learners by designing options for their emotional capacity, building knowledge, and strategy development. So it's really kind of important to look both ways. And we love the way that the guidelines fit together, and we'll be talking about that. So a couple of concrete examples before we move on of how we can put these guidelines to action. When we're starting a class, a meeting, a webinar, again, UDL is everywhere. And like Sarah would say, even in my own home, I would say sometimes when I'm making dinner, it's not about variety. Sometimes it's about option with picky teenagers. So for example, when you're starting that meeting online, do you have the closed captions on? And are you talking about the why of that so people understand? We're doing this for many reasons. For people who may have trouble hearing, but also for our students or learners who may be in a loud house. And the closed captions are really going to help them to engage in the material. Are you recording it? And if so, where will that be posted so that our learners can access, again, on their own time? Oh, I'd really like to hear that again. That would help me to learn. When people are trying to show what they know, can they unmute? Can they post in the chat? Can they annotate? All in the same meeting, but again, even that context and the learner's needs could change throughout one meeting. One time it might be accessible for them to annotate, and that might be the best way for them to show what they know. putting a stamp by something. But in a different context, maybe when it's more reflective for them, it might be better to unmute and share if that's available, or post in the chat. So again, kind of talking about the why. So all these ideas do promote that belonging by breaking down barriers when we put the UDL guidelines into action. So again, these don't represent the entirety of UDL. These are just ideas to get us started in different areas of UDL and kind of plant that seed for really digging in, like we mentioned before. So we briefly discussed the columns in the slides, and you see Sarah and I's enthusiasm for the framework here. But we do want to make something clear. And for us, this makes UDL all the more exciting and fun and inspiring. So the colors do come together for an improved overall experience. And the columns, the rows, they don't exist in silos. So let's talk about a couple of quick examples. So in the area of action and expression, so that, again, that's all about what are options for ways that students can show what they know. Let's say a group works together to put together a presentation and combines the ways in which they express what they know. So there are options where some learners may draw, some might talk, give a little presentation, or just share verbally what they know. Some might share artwork on a poster. So again, those are different ways how people can show what they know, but where else could this fit? This is also in an area of engagement that's fostering collaboration and community, that's minimizing threats by having those options. It's such exciting work that helps us to organize, again, our current best practices, but also encourages us all to grow in other areas to best reach and teach those we serve. And that's what we find really exciting. So we're going to circle back to some ideas later, some more concrete ideas, and we want you to think about how you're already providing options for engagement, representing content, and providing options for action and expression.
All right. Thank you, Tara, for giving us that overview. Now let's kind of flip a little bit and think about examples, potential examples of barriers in the environment. So it's springtime. We couldn't be happier that it's springtime. Who out here, raise your hand, put it in the chat. Who's a gardener? Who can't wait to get out there and get their hands dirty, get some dirt on it, and speak? Okay, Anne, Kimberly, Astrid, yay. Love to see the gardeners. Thank you so much, you gardeners. So when a flower doesn't bloom, or, a tomato plant doesn't produce tomatoes, we fix the environment in which it grows, right? Not that flower. We don't say, oh, it's the flower's fault. Maybe it needed more water. Maybe it needed less water. I'm a classic over-waterer of my house plants because I just want to keep watering them, but that's not the best thing for them. Maybe they need fertilizer. Maybe they need a different type of soil. Maybe they need some more sun. Maybe they need shade, all those kinds of things. So really, we want to use that to have you think about your learners in the same way. Everyone is capable of learning. And sometimes we need to think about how that information's shared, how the classroom's set up. Some of you are talking about online classes in the chat. Some people learn really well for an online class, and maybe that's the only way that they can have access right now to learning. And other people, maybe it's a barrier for them. So we really want to think about that variability is an important consideration when thinking about the differences between students. And also that, as Tara alluded to, let me just repeat, every person is different depending on the context. So just because I like information shared or how I interact with that information a certain way one day, another day I might need something different. So we do want to think about the variability. And as Tara also alluded to, I just want to repeat again that it's not just variability, but it's making sure that there's choices every single day for all of us. So yes, think about that and keep that in mind as you're thinking about your learners and your classroom. And then we'd also like you to think about teaching to the person first. Tara mentioned standards, and we know that the content that you're teaching, whether you're teaching vocabulary or math or writing, or you fill in the blank, we know that content's important. But if we think about the person first and the content second. And that arrow on there is squiggly for a reason, because we know that instruction isn't always like just direct. It depends on the day and the situation, all those kinds of things. So we want to think about person first. And if we do that, that again is a UDL concept, because we're going to think about what a person needs or what different people in my classroom needs. And you might be sitting here at this point, especially if you're new to UDL, and going, oh, this is great, but man, that sounds like a lot of extra work for me. You don't know what all the expectation is in the classroom. You got to get through all of this content. And yes, we hear you, we understand you. A couple of things that we want to say about that is, number one, if you take that time up front to kind of get to know people and help them learn how to learn, not just what they're learning, they're going to be more effective learners. They're going to come alongside you, and you're going to be partners in the learning, as opposed to kind of that top-down approach. Also, empower your students to tell you what they like, tell you what works for them, advocate for themselves. Oh, could we get this information in a different way? Or could you, and sometimes the answer might be no, for today it needs to be this way, but many times, oftentimes, we have options that we can provide information in different ways. We can provide options for them to tell us or show us that they know what we need them to know. So that's all that human-centered, human-first, thinking about that we teach people before we thinking about that we teach content. So let's unpack barriers just a little bit more. So for you, what are the barriers that you're seeing for your learners? If you'll put those in the chat, and again, if you don't put it in the chat, that's fine. We've got a lot of people, but we would like for you to call it to mind, put it on your note sheet, and think about what those barriers are. So we're seeing a few things in here. And we appreciate all of your fantastic comments in here. We're sorry that we're not able to read all of them right now, but keep them coming, because we love that. Tara, is there a couple things that you want to spotlight that you're seeing for barriers?
Absolutely. We have technology, resources for disability, poverty, mental illness, language proficiency, and digital literacy. A lot of language here. Sorry, they're coming really quickly. So like I started to read one and then it went up.
Wow.
Distractions when online from home, absolutely trauma, language, again, some like pre-literacy and home language. And absolutely these all fit within the UDL guidelines.
So thanks for sharing. And one of the other ones that I saw that I don't think you said, Tara, but maybe I missed it, was temperature. And I love that, because that's such a basic one. You know, and then I don't think we're talking about having a fever. I think we're talking about the temperature in the physical room. So I'd love also when the teacher doesn't have coffee first. Absolutely, that's important. You know, I had a professor many years ago. I was a special ed major, and I remember this professor saying, if your students are too hot, too cold, too hungry, too tired, too stressed, and somebody just put addiction in there, like they're humans first, right? We have to think about what they need. And again, I'd like to go on to the second point, because we're going to come back to some of the designing for variability. Where do they get stuck or frustrated? And that is part of the process that you want to go through, is to help think about, is there a point that you have seen in your experience that this is a frustration in my classroom? This is where people get stuck. This is a barrier for them, because every time we get to this concept, it seems like there's an issue there, a problem. So if you have anything you want to add for that in the chat, we'd love to see. Where do your students get stuck? Where do they get frustrated? Because again, as we're waiting for a few of those to come in, I'll just mention that, and Tara kind of mentioned this before, if I always find when I have this concept, it seems like people are getting stuck, well, then maybe I can go back and create a resource or two for this one concept, something that they can go and watch prior to coming to class, that they can review afterwards. Maybe there's a different way that I have, maybe I ask some students to talk about it with me, to kind of give me some ideas of how we can work through that particular thing that makes them stuck. They're unable to remember, okay? Coffee bar and bring food every day. Terry, thank you for saying that. One of the things I figured out years ago, very early on, I had some old bananas one morning, and I decided to make banana bread, and I took it in to my class, and it happened to all be young moms. That just happened to be the makeup of the class. And I realized that morning that bringing something special for them was going to make all the difference. Like, we had a really good day. Now, I didn't bring banana bread every day, but that, making them feel like they belonged. And then they started asking me for different things that I could bring. So, okay. Let's see, is there anything? Sticking with the practice as necessary proficiency in some skills. Okay. Yeah. And thinking about if that practice is problematic, is there a different way for them to practice? Is there a different way to interact with that? And Tara's going to talk about infusing UDL with some concrete examples. So stuck with inferences and questions. There we go. So that we'll think of, I'd like for you to take that, whatever you put in the chat, and as we're talking about ways to infuse UDL, see if you can answer your own question of like, hey, how could I maybe do something different? If this is a place that I know that they get stuck, how can I address this and plan for that in the future? And that leads us to our last question that's on this slide is how can we design our classroom environment and instruction to remove this barrier? And that's the question that I think is really important. And again, first of all, noticing that it is a barrier and then thinking about that deeply, I think is a big help for us. So let's turn the corner now and make sure, because I want to make sure we get to something that you can use on Monday if you haven't already. And actually, I'd like to ask, do you already have something for Monday? Because if you do, put that in the chat also. We'd love to see that. And if you don't, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep unpacking this. But this is an old tried but true. I mentioned years ago, that's my class with young moms. And I always started out the class sessions for whatever, we had like 8-week sessions at that time, with them getting to know each other. And it was old school, so it was a little grid. And I have to say that over the years, I have transitioned this onto online, and we do it virtually now. But think about these 4 simple things and the value of knowing 4 things about my students. First of all, what do they want to be called? Okay, because sometimes people come in with lots of different names, and something that they're good at. Now, sometimes students have trouble with that one, but we want from day one, we want to start them recognizing what they're good at. And here's the other thing. Before I unpack the second 2, let me just mention, this is also a work skill. It's a life skill, because we want our students to be employed if that is a goal for them. And so they need to be able to start talking about themselves and what they're good at. That's an interviewing skill. That's a skill that they would use with their supervisor. And so they need to start thinking about that, not only thinking about it, but being able to articulate that as well. So that's a skill we start day 1 and we work on throughout, and we tell them that. Also, we bring that up so that they know their why. Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because we want to build community. We want to know who each other is in the room, but we also need to be this is a life skill and a work skill. The lower left-hand quadrant, it irritates me when. That I have found to be very effective because, again, talking about community, building a community. If somebody shares something, it irritates me when someone is inconsiderate. Okay, we can talk about that. And then lastly, my another favorite is when I'm learning something new, I like to. As a teacher, I get to see how they like to learn. They get to call out how they like to learn. And it's just a really effective way for them to begin to think about themselves, for me as their teacher to know them, and then for them to know each other. And so, like I said, just a tried and true practice. And this is one that I could talk about forever, but I'm going to move on and let Tara tell you some other strategies to infuse UDL in the classroom. And I'd like to invite you again, because there's 200 plus people here, and some of you said that you like it, you love it, can't get enough of it. So if you're one of those people, or if you're anyone and you have an idea, throw it in the chat. We love to hear lots of great ideas of how to infuse UDL in the classroom. Okay, Tara, take it away.
Okay. These next couple of slides are giving you some ideas for infusing UDL. And yes, we'd love to see what you're doing too. All ideas for Monday. So have you ever made a short video with a screen capture for students to review in a setting and time frame of their choice? You know, there was a lot of conversation in the chat about, you know, who's coming right now, what kind of distractions or personal issues are students dealing with? If they could view a video, also perhaps be able to access an accompanying transcript or a summary with bullets that students could view maybe before class, about something that you're going to be talking about during class or interacting with during class. And they could also watch it again after class. That can be so powerful for students. I have an example, a very recent, actually yesterday, example of how different ways of accessing information can be really valuable. I've been having an issue when I'm sharing my screen that there's this little box that comes up that says Zoom is accessing your screen, and all my people who are viewing my screen on Zoom can see it too. It's really annoying. And my teammates have been trying to help me with it. And usually for IT things, in that context, I prefer bulleted lists. I like to just see, try it. Okay, that didn't work. Give me something else. This particular issue is hanging around, even with all the updates I've been doing. And so I have been trying some of the videos because I feel like I need some further instruction. And for me, the videos are doing that. But I appreciate both formats every time so that I can kind of pick what I feel like doing at that point. So that's a concrete example of some things you could do, but also how they can be really helpful in life and maybe kind of relating to ourselves. Of course, the exit tickets, we have a little picture there. And how do you offer that? You know, are they able to talk to you, maybe do a Google form? Is there something on their phones, like a QR code? A lot of times students have their phones. Is there maybe an option where they could record it real quick and send it to you? So just kind of thinking about some ideas of how you could really use the exit ticket idea for students to be able to talk to you about what they need. And then again, kind of going back to the goals. Are the steps clearly communicated, or do you just have a quick agenda? Also, are learners able to express their goals? And are you able to make sure you reference their goals when you're talking about the overall class purpose? And the next slide, some more ideas. Are students able to use audio for their texts? And most importantly, have you spent the time necessary to make sure that students are able to access that technology? This can be so powerful for students. Recently, my students have really dug into, it's a tried and true resource, but VOA News Learning English has been really powerful. And we need to take time to think about, you know, are students really able to, do they know the buttons to hear the audio and read along? And then also all of our phones and our computers, they come with screen readers, but again, are we able to provide guides for how students can use that technology for everything that we're giving them? This is supposed to signify giving students the option to collaborate. Can they do a small group read? If the goal is to identify the main idea or cause and effect, students don't necessarily need to read. They could listen to something, they can talk to each other. A lot of these strategies put together can give students confidence. And, you know, feeling success really adds to their motivation and their self-esteem. So instead of writing, could they record their answer or speak it live to you? A lot of our learning management systems actually are adding this option. So again, it's taking that time to show the students, removing the barrier of having to physically write or type. If you want them to understand the content, they can demonstrate that understanding through speaking as well, or having that option. How about role playing? Have you ever tried role playing in class? It's not for everyone, but if you have some students who, you know, they like that, they like interacting, maybe having the spotlight, let them have it with some instructions, parameters. They'll be reteaching concepts that you already taught through their actions. So this is really good if you're teaching work skills too. Let them mock interview and let them practice advocating for themselves. I did this recently with new health vocabulary and turned it into a role play, but I also shared the scripts. You know, they had little cards that they used in the role play. I also shared the scripts on the learning management system so they could go back and kind of see that. And then also in terms of confidence, the students had those cards during the role play so they could go and reference those. Also in class, quick tip, maybe something you could start on Monday. In my class, something that students they accessed it actually a lot more than I thought. You have not had the pleasure of seeing my wonderful handwriting, but that's not a thing. And so I've really been trying to type and use my projector in class, or if I'm teaching online, to really show, if a student asks a question and I show a Google image, I then put it on the notes from the day. Or if students ask something about a vocabulary question and we talk about the definition, I'll type it up and put it in. And it just says like the date and the notes from class. So again, someone was talking about students are always really trying to catch up. I put those notes in the learning management system after class each day. So then students, maybe if they were gone, someone was talking about attendance and catching up, they can at least go through that and kind of see what happened in class. And sometimes a lot of the best learning happens organically. So I try to capture that just in a Google Doc and I link it to my learning management system. I just thought I'd share that real quick. And it's an example of seeing things in different way, accessing it at their own time. I put the audios that we use in class that go along with our books in those notes as well. So students can at least get an idea of what they miss and hopefully learn. And then sometimes it elicits some great instruction, like what was that picture again? And, things like that, maybe something to try.
All right. Thank you, Tara. And somebody just, Ashley, put in about having some information about the role playing.
Oh,
I will
sure.
just mention, yeah, we can send you more. I will tell you
Sure.
one of my favorite role plays of all time is we were learning the Bill of Rights, and they had to act out different parts of the rights. So it was a great experience because they remembered it. They remembered those 10 bills, and we were really having a hard time getting that information stuck to memory. So that's just one thing. We've also used role playing and advocating for ourselves. I'm taking something back. How would I do that in a way that's not aggressive, but not passive, but more of an asserting myself in an appropriate way? So that's just a couple of quick ideas. I mean, role playing can be used in a lot of different situations. And as Tara mentioned, it's not necessarily for everybody. And for some people, it would be very stressful to have to role play. But for those of you who've been teachers for a while, the students who would really buy into that, and the others learn as well. Okay, so a quick quote that we want to share. Another rock star teacher from Illinois is Amy Elston from College of DuPage. And so I am going to read this because I just think this is so powerful, because if you're sitting there going, okay, wait, I have a lot to do on Monday. Is this worth it? I hope Amy's words motivate you to take one thing and try one new thing with your students. And Amy says, I can give you a specific example of a student who sat silent in class, did not write, never wanted to participate, did not complete work, but once he was given options and encouragement and felt part of a community, he completely changed and has flourished. He arrives early, asks questions, shares answers, and reads independently now. His story is truly a result of UDL being implemented. I cannot tell you how much he has changed and grown. And so we're not telling you, again, to throw out what you're doing. We're asking you to use that UDL lens and think about it and say, what can I infuse? What else can I do? And if you're like, wait, I still don't have anything for Monday, Tara's going to tell you about a lesson bank that has UDL lessons in them.
Absolutely. And we want to share this lesson bank with you for many reasons. First of all of the lessons in our lesson bank, and I should back up and say the link to this lesson bank is in your notes, and it's also being put in the chat. It's something you could take a lesson for Monday. We keep going back to that. And all these lessons are seen through what we refer to as the tri-lens approach. So those three lenses are our standards. So you'll see references to our standards in each of these lessons. The Illinois Essential Employability Skills. That's a mouthful. So there are suggestions for employability skills and how those lessons cover different skills in each of these lessons. And of course, universal design for learning. So with each lesson, you'll see considerations from all three of these areas. And on the next slide, we just have a quick example of, in one of these lessons, how you can see these considerations. So in this lesson, what this means on the screen here, in this particular lesson, the instructor who provided the lesson went through and pulled out how they are giving suggestions for multiple means of expression, action and expression.
And Tara, I did just throw in the link. It's in the note pages,
you.
but also to the lesson bank.
And then this part is so exciting. This is our student voice project. And we'd like to kind of take a minute to frame this. And so people kind of, what are these two things on the screen and how did this all fit together? So we really want to hear from students, from their voice. How does UDL work for you? So if my teacher, my instructor is implementing or infusing universal design for learning, how is that making a difference for me? We tried to share some ideas throughout the session of how we've heard from students, how our instructors have shared this. And we also wanted to add and do some action research about, okay, how can we really hear this from the student voice? So we have to be able to explain UDL to start with our students. And so we wanted to have an option for a video. So again, representing the material in different ways, not just explaining it to them, but also having a video they could watch about it, also having some text to read about it. But we couldn't find a video. We found a lot of videos that are meant to help instructors understand UDL, teachers, educators. We found videos to help K-12 students, especially elementary students. You could tell there was some action research there, like what is universal design for learning? So it had references to recess and things like that, but we couldn't find anything if we're trying to share what universal design for learning is with our adult learners. So we made a video and you'll hear the lovely voice of our colleague and friend Erin Vabornik on this video. She did a lot with her technology and we put together a script. So we created a video to help us explain to our learners what universal design for learning is. And do we have time to take a look at that, Sarah?
Yeah, I'll bring it up. It's only
Okay,
a little
I
over a
think so
minute
too.
long. It's short.
Each learner is unique. In fact, as unique as their fingerprints. Even within a learner, how learning takes place can vary depending on what is being learned, the time of day, or what is going on in their lives. Teachers who use Universal Design for Learning, UDL, understand the importance of celebrating the variability in their learners and ask learners to be an active part, a partner, in their learning process. By learning about your own learning, you can apply this information in many ways throughout your life. Let's get started looking at UDL so you can understand and apply this framework to you and your learning. You can access, understand, and apply what you learn through UDL. When you see how what you are learning is similar to something you already know and could be applied in a valuable way in your life, you will recruit interest. Your brain will be ready to learn when you recruit interest. It's like a flashing billboard telling you to pay attention. When you see, hear, or are able to discuss or use information, then you have valuable perceptions. Having a variety of ways to access information or concepts ensures your brain has many options to fully understand and use this new information with what you already know. One day, you may want to watch a video. Another, you may want to listen to a podcast. And another day, you may want to talk with a friend about what you are learning. These are all ways for our brain to use what you're learning and to give you a better understanding. And you'll be able to remember it. Finally, having options for ways to express yourself to show what you know is another part of UDL. Saying what you know, writing it, drawing a picture, or acting it out are all ways to take action and express what you know. This allows you to use your unique gifts and apply them to your learning, so information has meaning for you. When you practice UDL and think about ways to use it more in your life, you will build your skills and get better at learning. The end goal is for you to internalize these skills and use them all the time, including in your daily life and in work. Continuing to learn and grow is easier and more rewarding when you know what makes you an expert learner. Think of different ways that you learn best and how you can work with your teacher to to help them understand your unique learning and goals.
Thank you. And thank you out there to our colleague, Erin, for her wonderful voice and for explaining that so clearly. And again, we invite you and would love you to join in this student voice project where we explain to students what we're doing. And then we ask them, how did this make a difference in your learning? That video is one part of that process where we can explain to students what UDL is. We also have different templates and ways that you can then get that information from students. We would love for you to join us in that project. We did provide a link to that explanation, and it's comprehensive. It'll tell you what to do next. Please join us in that really important action research.
Thank you, Tara, for that good plug. And hopefully I'll just add my voice to Tara's that we would love to have you walk alongside with us and do some research that we could then share that data with people about our adult education students. So we're just going to leave you with a thought, and then we're going to ask for a call to action. So we're going to ask you to think about what's one small change. Again, you're not going to throw out what you're doing. Keep doing the good work you're doing, but how can you change it a little bit? How can you fuse one thing? How can you build that community in your classroom? So we're going to ask you that in just a minute. But if you need one more motivation to do that important work, it's the call to action to focus on the design of our classrooms and our curriculum rather than the weaknesses of our students. And a quick story for you from why is there a cockpit on the screen? During World War II, there was a time that there was a lot of wheels up crashes that were happening in a particular airplane. And the powers that be were like, what's going on? Are they not getting the right training? Are they too tired? Why are they having all these crashes? Because if you've flown on a plane, you know that when you're coming down, you want the wheels to be down. We don't want the wheels up. And then they realized it was only in one type of plane, and they looked at the cockpit, and the lever for the wheels down and for the wing flaps were close together and looked very similar. So they were hitting the wrong button. That simple. They were able to redesign the cockpit, and those crashes stopped. That sounds like way too easy, right? May all our problems be solved that easily. But think about what are one small way that you can change something to make a big impact. So I invite you now to put that in the chat, to commit to that, to tell your colleague, tell your boss, all those types of things. There we go. And put that in the chat because we'd love to be inspired by you. If you still don't have your thing for Monday, hopefully one of your fellow Minnesotans will put it in the chat, and that will inspire you. And so I will say there's a couple of questions I think that are happening out there. There was a question about a good book to recommend. Tara, do you have one that you have? Otherwise, that link to the CAST website, if you want to dig in, that's clickable. It's so good. Like, okay, I just want to know about this one thing. Let me go click and read about that. So we'll think about one book. There's so many good books out there, but we'll think about.
There are so many good books. I do love the clickable nature. There are concrete suggestions. There's also Universal Design for Learning Daily. There's a lot of great books, but we have referenced this one in our conversations, at SIPDC. So Universal Design Daily, so different ways. So there's tons of books like this, and we encourage you to check them out.
All right. Thank you guys for your time this morning. Thank you for the work that you do. You are greatly appreciated. You are making a difference. And so keep up that good work. We would love to hear from you. Here's our contact information. If you want to talk UDL, if you want to be a part of the Student Voice Project, there's all kinds of ways. But I think now we are going to turn it over to Erin, who is going to give you a review of some of the resources, the fantastic resources that you have available to you. So Erin, do you want me to stop sharing so that you can?
Thank you all.
Hello, yes, sure. Thank you, Sarah and Tara, for your excellent presentation on UDL. It's such an important, valuable, and effective framework for teachers and students. So thank you very much for that. Great information. I'm gonna go back to our screen here. And well, good morning, everyone. I'm Erin Parker from Panda. And if you're not familiar with Panda, we provide assistance and resources to Minnesota ABE programs and teachers throughout the state to help educate students with disabilities. Building on the important information Sarah and Tara shared, I'd like to let you know that Panda offers a UDL course on Canvas, an online course on Canvas. It's a great opportunity for you to dive deeper into the UDL framework and explore practical ways to apply its principles to your classroom and teaching. So I'm going to kind of show you where you can register for this and a little bit also about our website. So let me just kind of open this up here. Oh, so it's acting kind of weird. Okay, so when we take a look here at our Panda website, if we're in the PD, professional development, you'll notice we also have
Actually seeing your website. Did you need to pull that tab up?
Okay, hold on. Let me just see
Take your time. All good.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Can you see it now?
There you go. Yep, perfect.
Okay, good. Excellent. So yeah, it was we have our tabs here across the top, and the PD tab is where I went to directly just to kind of show you here what we have available on Canvas. These are our online courses, and Universal Design for Learning is the one here at the bottom. And when you click here, you can just register automatically for that right from the website. So just to kind of show you that, you go right into Canvas and request to enroll in that course. So that's a great opportunity to explore UDL a little more. Oh, sorry here. And we have 4 other courses that all meet licensure requirements that you could also take online on Canvas. So I wanted to kind of show you that. Also, some other, just pointing out parts of our website, because our website has a lot of great resources and information for teachers. If I go here to our home page, just showing here that we have all these mental wellness tip sheets, which I'm going to be doing a presentation today on mental wellness, and we have them in 10 different languages. So that's a neat resource for people to access. We also have if we go to categories here, just to show you all the different categories that we have on here. And each of these categories focuses on things like, if we went into your brain injury, it will have overviews and then going into instructional strategies, classroom challenges, and those kind of things in each of the areas. So that's, and if you notice here on the side, you can see the categories here too. We just have tons of information on various disabilities or concerns that learners might face in their education. So that's a great resource there. And then if we go to our forms tab, we have all these different forms if you're looking at intake for different students and low incidence disability aid. But one thing I wanted to point out is this disability helpline. And here is a form that you can fill out if you're having a concern about a student. And, they'll just ask for some information, and then this will come directly to us and give us a chance to respond to you and get more information there. So, yeah, and let me just go back here. And then, of course, our PD, which I showed you, but then more resources, tons of resources that we've curated for in different categories here that can help you with the you know, resources in the community and throughout the state. If you know, we've curated all of these and have the links to get to those resources and for contact information. So wanted to show you that. And hopefully, you know, if you have any questions, please contact us through our website here. And you know, we have our contact information here for myself and my colleague Sheila, who is also with Panda. So thank you for letting us share that. And are there any questions? I'm looking to see here.
I'll let you take a look at the chat to see if there are any
Yeah,
questions. We
take
are
a
going to
look
need
at-
to give people a chance to move to their next. Thank you so much, Erin, for sharing that information about
Yeah,
Panda. And
for
there's just so
sure.
much there. People are going to need to take a little time and explore all of the wonderful resources that you and your colleagues
Yeah.
have collected there. So thank you for being part of this and connecting
Yeah.
that to our previous speakers. And thank you so much to Tara and Sarah for their time and their expertise around universal design.